Cole poured a tiny amount of the drain cleaner into a big 5-gallon bucket they had found. He instructed one of the kids to open all the windows they could. The windows and bay doors got opened, and the kids started filing out to do various chores like this was a normal day. Cole began stirring, then poured in the amount of antifreeze he thought would be the right amount to start the conversion from sodium methoxide. He stirred for a few minutes, and it started to change. Taking that as his cue, Cole poured a liter of the smelly vegetable oil waste into the bucket. Cole stirred the 3 components together for a few minutes until he was confident it was going to work, then handed the glass item to the junior chemist that had some goggles on, and the two nodded. Now that the mixture was on his way, Cole got a second one prepared, and one of the kids had found another glass object to stir with. This one looked like an odd shape, and Cole didn't want to ask where it had come from. The girl blushed, but wanted to be a part of the chemistry experiment. She gave a look to the chemist boy, and he blushed too. He started instructing her on how to make a second batch. Cole reminded the two to keep stirring the buckets until they separated into 2 layers in about a half an hour, and to stir slow. They both nodded. The chemist boy started to explain the process to the girl, trying to sound smart. She soaked up every word he said. Cole walked off as the boy explained they would want the top layer for the biodiesel. The bottom layer would be glycerin. Every time Cole had learned to do this, nobody ever really told him what you could use glycerin for, so he hadn't worried about it. Oh well, he thought. Then went to go check on the kids in quarantine. They were weak and couldn't help much, but he needed to see how they were doing. He wanted to try to get them into the garbage truck also, to save them if he could. Cole walked out and around the building, and saw a suspicious toolbox that didn't seem to fit with anything else. The drawer on it was slightly open. Cole subconsciously patted his dual 1911 jammed between his belt and body, and walked towards the rolling cabinet. In the drawer was tools, ammo, and some kind of weird shotgun. All the kids around stopped, except for the 2 junior chemists stirring. Cole held the shotgun up. It had 2 barrels and 2 magazine tubes. The shotgun was heavy, no doubt already loaded with heavy slugs. There was a backpack inside, and Cole wanted to sling it over his back, but decided to check it out first. He felt the jab of boxes of ammo in his hand as he ran his hand over it. The backpack was sized for a kid, so he would look gigantic wearing it. The outside pouch had the feel of several large magazines. Cole hoped they were 1911 magazines, and assumed they would be, since presumably the same group orchestrated this odd Easter egg hunt. It was a city camo backpack that was lined with wire and had integral locks to deter opening or theft. Trying to cut it open with a knife or scissors would only ruin the knife. Cole was impressed. It had close to 50 pounds of ammo inside, and a first aid kit hanging off that looked homemade. Cole threw it on and didn't feel any jabs in his back. He must have had a padded laptop liner or something. Cole approved, and upon seeing the shotgun, the kids seemed to have a renewed energy that they would actually be safe now. Shotgun in hand, Cole went to check on the quarantined kids. They were sick and weak. The door was open, letting fresh air in. A few had started to get it out to walk around, unsure of what to do. Fear was in their eyes. Cole instructed them all that they would not be forgotten. None of them looked terribly sick, and Wood had mentioned that he was the last one in and that it had been 2 weeks. Cole was no doctor, but that seemed like plenty enough to not be contagious with anything. But they needed new clothes. Even for malnourished teens, they were small. Cole recalled the second-hand clothing store and recruited one of the Amazon-type women and one of the guards with spears to help him. They sprinted the few blocks, and Cole heard Reagan in his ear. He tried to respond to her, then realized she'd been talking to a recording that was now playing back to him. This repeats until I update. I'm going to try to pull them away. You don't have much time. Hit the mic, say okay, and it'll stop until I update. None of this happens in real time. A little something the IT kids rigged up so I can leave messages without being tracked. About a 20-minute delay. Cole said into his mic after a second of holding the button down OK, and the recording stopped abruptly after a few repeating words of the phrase she had just said. The two kids didn't hear him as they sprinted. Cole wasn't used to cardio and was nearly out of breath when they arrived a few minutes later. Cole hoped they weren't seen, but hadn't seen anyone else around. The two kids looked like they had barely moved, as if this was a normal thing. Cole explained what they were looking for, and they went in through the doors already busted off their hinges. In and out in 3 minutes. The two nodded at him and went separate directions, both knowing the layout of the store from history. Both returned within the allotted amount of time with handfuls full of clothes, and Cole with clean empty garbage bags and a comically large trench coat. All the clothes were stuffed in the bags, with a few bags kept as spares. They ran back with Cole lagging behind, carrying the full bags of clothes. Both kids returned to their prior tasks as soon as they got back to the computer supercenter. Out of breath, Cole told the quarantine kids to change into the clean clothes and put the dirty clothes in another bag. Cole went to the garbage truck to see electronics being piled into bins and shelves, so they were vertical but secure. The garbage had already been cleaned out and the inside sanitized. You couldn't even tell it had been a garbage truck. Cole took a step back and realized it had been painted to look like a giant turtle. Some of the kids had found some paint somewhere. The turtle motif was both intimidating and made it look more defensive than it may have actually been. Cole took a few more steps back to appreciate, but heard sounds coming from behind. Right then, a group of 6 cartel members rounded a corner, cocky as ever. Apparently they didn't get the memo. One eyeballed a teen girl, helping to unload the garbage truck on a prayer they could get it to run. The security guy saw them and backed around a corner. Some hand signals smacking on a wall got the attention of 2 more ready with nail guns. They had to get closer, though, and they could run away if Cole engaged them at distance with his firearms, so he did something he hated doing, a tactical retreat. He pretended to hobble away as if his leg was hurting. This wasn't as hard as his body was pretty sore from all the impractical sprinting that he had to do. As he shuffled away like an improv zombie, he saw only hatred and disdain in their eyes as they closed in like predators. Cole had to hide his elation that this was working as easily as it was. Even without weapons, he was sure he could take 6 of them as long as they didn't get around him. This was going to be ugly. He listened for their footsteps as one of the other Amazon girls scooted away and contained everyone that had been moving in and out of their facility. Closer and closer they came until he made himself known. He stared at the 6 and they stopped and stared at him only 25 yards away. They stared at each other for at least 2 minutes, Cole trying to imagine how much time the 2 chemist kids needed to finish the biodiesel. Any noise he made now would trim down the time Reagan had risked herself for. The 6, more than content to risk 1 or 2 of them to take out Cole to get the vulnerable children that they'd been searching for so long. The cartel mafia hated foreigners so much, but they had forgot something. This wasn't their land. Maybe it was to their ancestors for a few generations, but it was someone else's land before that, and on and on. But now it wasn't, and they were going to find out. The guys all got their makeshift weapons out and grinned sadistically. Cole couldn't help it anymore. He laughed. He laughed. And he laughed. The laughing couldn't stop. The kids got nervous, but he couldn't help it. It only made him laugh more. He had finally snapped. The kids all got really startled. Had they put all their hope in someone that was about to sell them out? A sick knot in their stomachs emerged, but didn't have time to fester as Cole snapped into perfect clarity, bellowing out his shotgun in what felt like ultra slow motion. The faces on the cartel members turned from sadism to confusion to horror. With racking the slide, the 2 pulls of the trigger fired 2 rounds in succession before anyone could blink. Buckshot and slugs combined in a terrifying result. Wad in the varying sizes of lead destroyed 2 cartel members and wounded 2 more. They turned to run as Cole rocked the slide once more, loading 2 more rounds. The 2 security guards with nail guns emptied 10 rounds apiece into the faces of the 2 cartel members in under a second. Screams filled the air.